Good afternoon, Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this important international roundtable titled Civilization in Dialogue, International Voices for the Digital Era. Today we gather at a moment when technology is transforming how societies communicate, learn, govern, and coexist. While digital platforms and artificial intelligence offer unprecedented opportunities for connection, they also present new challenges related to trust, misinformation, polarization, and social cohesion. The purpose of today's dialogue is to explore how soft power, ethical leadership, interface engagement, youth participation, and emerging technologies can work together to strengthen mutual understanding among peoples and cultures. We are honored to be joined by an exceptional group of international leaders, scholars, faith representatives, policymakers, youth leaders, and civil society voices, where expertise reflects the diversity and richness of our global community. And now we will start by inviting His Excellency Jason Isaacson, the Chief Policy and Political Affairs Officer of the American Jewish Committee, in order to deliver his speech. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Dahlia. In this intensely challenging period, with wars in recent days on or just over the horizon, the American Jewish Committee commends the Emirates Scholar Center for Research and Studies and our fellow institutional partners for convening this important conference, and specifically for highlighting the urgency, the necessity of promoting tolerance. In this vital region, as everyone in this hall is aware, the forces of intolerance are dispersed across societies, highly active on social media, supported by one resource-rich national government, and by a globalized extremist movement that has threatened stability and free expression for well over half a century, and committed to eliminating diversity, to subjugating those with alternative views and beliefs. These forces are formidable, and the impact of the toxins that they infuse in the social bloodstream is substantial. Nor by any means are they confined to this region. In my own country, extremists at various points on the political spectrum vilify the other, delegitimize the other, demonize the other. Famous entertainers platform hate. Immigrants are targeted in mass shootings. Racial and religious supremacy seems no longer to elicit shame. In America and in other countries, Jewish minorities are subject disproportionately to denigration, to conspiracy theories, to acts of violence. My organization, the American Jewish Committee, regularly polls our community, and in our latest survey, we found that roughly half of American Jews feel that anti-Semitism is a very serious problem, and more than 9 in 10 say that they feel less safe today than they felt a year ago. These were flashing red lights. But what my community has been experiencing goes well beyond words. In May of last year, just outside an AJC Washington program on interfaith cooperation to increase humanitarian aid in Gaza and other conflict zones, 2 young members of the Israeli embassy staff, Sarah Milgram and Yaron Lishinsky, were shot to death. A few days later, a peaceful demonstration in Boulder, Colorado, demanding the release of hostages held by Hamas, was attacked with Molotov cocktails. Karen Diamond, an 88-year-old grandmother, was killed, and 13 other individuals were wounded. We are still scarred by the Pittsburgh Tree of Life Synagogue massacre of 2018, which took the lives of 11 worshipers, the killing of 1 worshiper at the Chabad Poway Synagogue in 2019, and the thwarted mass attack just 2.5 months ago at Temple Israel outside Detroit, Michigan. Of course, America isn't the only country to experience an increase in violent anti-Semitism. We mourn and are still profoundly shaken by the murders of 15 individuals celebrating Hanukkah last December on Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. And we continue to hold in our hearts the blessed memory of Rabbi Zvi Kogan, who was abducted and murdered not many miles from here in November 2024, eliciting a powerful response with swift justice by UAE authorities, I must say, who have exemplified for years the spirit of tolerance and mutual respect that we so admire. What is especially disturbing, and this relates directly to this afternoon's roundtable, is the frequency with which members of my community report encountering anti-Semitism online. In this digital era, hate proliferates, encounters few obstacles, and poses unprecedented threats. More than 7 in 10 respondents in the latest AJC survey of American Jews reported being subjected to anti-Semitic content on social media, most of them multiple times. As my colleague Holly Huffnagel, AJC Director of Anti-Semitism Policy, recently observed, the digital world is the front line in the fight against anti-Semitism. In AJC's surveys, we find that while instances of hatred, of disparagement, of the most grotesque lies about Jews are routinely encountered on social media, too seldom are they reported to platform mediators or other authorities. That has to change, and so too do the actions of the platforms themselves. Where content moderation, as both the number of accounts and the volume of malefactors has multiplied, has assumed in recent years a lower priority. In another AJC report released earlier this year in partnership with Cyberwell, an NGO combating online anti-Semitism, we recommended the following steps: strengthening enforcement against the glorification of anti-Semitic attacks and pro-terror content, improving detection of coded and AI-generated anti-Semitism, preventing coordinated manipulation and bot activity, and increasing transparency around content moderation and algorithmic amplification. I fully recognize and must emphasize that by no means is hate, is prejudice directed solely at the Jewish community. Political figures and podcasters in my country have gained followings spewing vile insults of Muslims, mischaracterizing the teachings of the Holy Quran, and such expressions, amplified by social media, have led inevitably to violence, the latest incidence of which was the horrific attack just 2 weeks ago at the Islamic Center of San Diego, in which Mansour Kaziha, Nadir Awad, and Amin Abdullah were murdered. Nor, looking beyond my country's shores, can we ever forget the horrors of March 2019 in Christchurch, New Zealand, in which 51 people were shot to death and 89 others injured in attacks at the Al-Noor Mosque and the Linwood Islamic Center. Attacks that were live streamed and were found to have motivated later attacks on Jews and other minorities in the United States and in Europe. Muslims and Jews aren't hate's only targets. Societies unsettled by change, by economic dislocation, by shifting demographics, by perceived external threats are prone to adopting narratives, embracing conspiracy theories that attribute their struggles to the actions, the wiles, the subterfuge of the other, typically a racial or ethnic or religious minority, or those with different gender identities or orientations, or with novel political perspectives. It wasn't so many years ago that individuals with such attitudes, scattered among the general population, were no more than social irritants, the types one avoided in the school cafeteria or the bar. That is, unless a charismatic charlatan found a way to reach them, to unite them, and rose to power on the strength of their discontent, offering easy answers, offering powerless scapegoats. It happened in Germany nearly a century ago. I very much fear that it could happen again in our time. In this digital era, creative promoters of hate have tools their predecessors lacked. In fact, the tools are universal, adaptable, increasingly intelligent, awesomely powerful. In the nearly lawless environment of the internet, truth confronts fabrication and often emerges the loser. Snarky beats thoughtful. Outrageous, demeaning, and embarrassing are clickbait. It is in this moment, in this dark moment in the digital era, that we call out for leadership in government, in civil society and faith institutions, and especially in big tech, to finally put in place effective controls, filters, and rules of behavior that safeguard the public interest on the internet, that disempower the promulgators of hate, and that make clear once and for all that free expression is not a license to defame, to disrespect, to destroy. I look forward to the insights offered on these and related issues by the distinguished participants in this digital roundtable, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for this informative kind of insights and information. And now let's start our roundtable discussion. And I'll start with the question of how can artificial intelligence be designed and governed in ways that strengthen human connection rather than deepen the social divisions? And this question is directed to Mr. Pranav.
Hello. Yes. So first of all, very good afternoon to all my fellow panelists. And thank you, Dr. Dalia, for a wonderful question. So the question is, how does AI actually help us with all the connections that we have today? I start with a small prayer which I have learnt in my childhood from a very ancient script called Rig Veda. It's an ancient Hindu script, but the prayer is very important for today. It says, Yano Badraha, Kratavo Yantu Vishwataha. In a very simple language, it says that let the noble thoughts come to us from all direction. I think that is kind of the underlying theme for the digital era. Let the good things come from any geography, any culture, any faith. But more important, when we accept voices from other side, and as Mr. Isaac mentioned, it is very important to have some kind of filters in terms of truth, in terms of compassion, and in terms of responsibility. So today, the world of AI, as you know, I myself am working in technology domain. Personally, I have developed a lot of AI-related apps, let's say, and it is a very powerful tool. But important is how you use it. In Hindu faith, for example, we are right now using it to explain our ritual, a Hindu ritual, to a non-Hindu person, let's say. If you come to our temple, which is in Abu Dhabi, it's a beautiful temple. We have a lot of value tales which we have carved out of stone.
And a very good point, because when you are talking about we need to be open for other voices than us, this is a core point and a key success in order to strengthen and enforce how people are connecting together. Thank you very much. How to combat or control, Ms. Aisha, the AI or the digital kind of technologies in order not to lead us to a kind of division instead of we use it for connections. Do you have any thoughts about this point?
الحوار بين اسمحوا لي أتكلم بالعربي. الحوار بين الثقافات هي مسألة مهمة للجميع، للمجتمعات والأفراد، لأنها تسهم في كسر العزلة الثقافية وتسهم في تنمية آفاق الفرد على المستويات الثقافية والاجتماعية. الذكاء الاصطناعي قادر على تسهيل هذه العملية وجعلها أكثر عمقاً وتركيباً. لذلك أصبح العالم قرية صغيرة يتواصل الناس فيها، والذكاء الاصطناعي قادر على بناء مشروعات فكرية وثقافية مهمة لتطوير التعليم والثقافة والحياة المجتمعية. على سبيل المثال في منصات تعليمية عالمية تساعد أنظمة الذكاء الاصطناعي في تقديمها مع مراعاة الخلفيات والثقافات المتعددة.
Thank you very much for this point. Actually, it's very nice. And now I'll direct the questions to you. Can you please tell us how we can harness the digital technologies in order to enforce our connections and reduce its harmful effects of the separation between nationalities, civilization, and people? What kind of strategies we can use?
السلام عليكم، سلوى أبو كاشف. سؤال حلو، لأنه أنا بشتغل في منظمة شبابية، وأحد أهدافنا إنه نبني ونعلم الأجيال الجاية كيف يتقدموا من خلال التكنولوجيا للهدف والمعنى الأساسي في الحياة، يتعرفوا على المبادئ، على قيم، على ناس مختلفة، ويآمنوا في كل ديانة، في كل قيمة للمجتمع، لأنه كل مجتمع فيه عاداته وتقاليده. فإحنا كمجتمع عربي بنحب إن نتعلم ونستفيد ونفيد المجتمعات اللي مختلفة في حياتهم.
So thank you very much. I would like to hear from you. Is there any strategy we can apply in order to increase our connectivity by the use of digital technology and instead of our diversity and divisions?
First, let me talk about the heart of the problem before the heart of the solution. The Talmud says that religion could be a potion of life, but also a potion of death. Religion is powerful. Power corrupts. Great power leads to great corruption. AI, media, the digital world has immense power. So the potential of corruption is also so great. So what to do to change that there's so much poison in through the digital world? There's a wise saying of the Sufi mystic Rumi: beyond ideas of right thinking, beyond ideas of wrong thinking, there is a field. There we will meet. I believe the question is not about being on the right side or on the wrong side, for or against. This just leads to more hatred and anger. The question is finding the field of connection. And to give one small example, about a decade ago, there was an event in Jerusalem called the Jerusalem Hug. Jews, Muslims, Christians, Israelis, Palestinians, we made a wall, human wall, and gave a big hug to the old city of Jerusalem. And a picture from that event received, after hundreds of thousands of shares on the digital world, Google chose it as Picture of the Year, the search to make sense. Making sense is not about who is right and who is wrong, but a story of connection, a field going beyond right and wrong. Let us connect.
Thank you very much. Actually, you raised a very good point, because not all the people nowadays actually on the side of digital technology and AI. There are a huge and big sector in the whole world, in different communities, regardless of their nationalities or countries, are a little bit skeptic of the hazardous kind of effects of AI. It's like we are creating a monster that maybe later at a certain point we could never control. And you raised this point. And actually your point takes us to another question that maybe Dr. Lisa could help us in, which is, can empathy be taught to technology, or must empathy remain fundamentally a human trait? What I mean, you, of course, Doctor, heard about the humanoid kind of robots that people are using and try to buy in order to share and reciprocate emotions, not only the kind of technical kind of duties. So what do you think about this? Should we keep only empathy to human beings, or we can also move forward in order to embed this kind of human traits like empathy, caring to the technology or in the robots? What do you think about this point?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really interesting question. And I don't actually have an answer. I don't think we have an answer. One thing I would like to put forth is the importance of having more people around the table to have the discussion. So when people have been talking at this conference, we say everyone is using AI, but it's actually not true. Everyone is not using AI, and everyone does not know about AI. And many of the people who are on the more ethical side are actually ignoring it. So I want to tell you a little story. I was invited to as a leader, I was invited to talk to a group of Stern students in a leadership class. And I talked about my work at Jewish Theological Seminary, launching new programs, and everyone thought, okay, that's great. And then I talked about that I consult for AI. And a young man who was under 30 raised his hand, and he said, I don't want to be mean. I thought maybe you should stop talking, because when you say I don't want to be mean, you're about to be mean. He said, I don't want to be mean, but you don't look like someone who could understand AI. So was he talking about my age? Probably. Was he talking about my gender? Probably. Was he talking about the fact that I don't look as, chic or as, well-dressed as he is? So I just want to say that for the conversations about AI, we need to have everybody at the table. And that means really educating people. I appreciate you're talking about that you've learned it, you know it, and then you can talk about the risks. But at JTS, I gave a talk to rabbis, and I was graduating rabbis, to tell them how they could use AI, and many said, I object to AI, I don't want to learn. And I would say, I think we all need to learn, and we need to be sure to be inclusive in the learning, and to remember that there are so many people who are being excluded from the conversation.
Actually, very good point, which leads us to one conclusion. You couldn't judge a point you couldn't judge anything in life unless you understand all the ins and outs about it. So we should start from informing more about AI, knowing more kind of campaigns of awareness in order to understand, then decide whether we are advocates or on the other side. Thank you, Doctor. And let's move to Mr. Aram. Mr. Aram, actually, back to our question, when we're talking about AI, robots, humanoid robots, do you think that all the kind of traits like caring, sympathy, and feelings should be limited only to human beings, or we should move forward with a kind of invention regarding technology or AI that are embedded with emotions, empathy, and such kind of things? I would like to hear your insights, actually.
Thank you, Dr. Dalia, and good afternoon, everyone. Since I come from Kurdistan, the western part of it, northeastern Syria, I would love to speak Arabic, and since this is the first time for me in the United Arab Emirates, and Mr. Mansouri and I were talking about how the language is important to express the identity. So Arabic for me is the second mother language. لذلك سوف أتحدث العربية هنا بينكم. لست خبيرا جدا بموضوع الذكاء الصناعي وارتباطه بموضوع المشاعر، ولكني لأنني أعمل في مجال العمل الاجتماعي وأدير منظمة تربوية تعليمية في شمال ألمانيا في مدينة اسمها بريمن. في منظمتنا بسبب تعاملنا مع عدة شرائح معينة من المجتمع، نتعامل مع مجتمعات تتحدث العربية، الكردية، الإنجليزية، التركية، الفارسية والألمانية. عملنا مع 6 مجتمعات مختلفة. بسبب ذلك الأمر اعتمادنا كموظفين في هذه المنظمة، وانطلاقا من عملي في المجال الشبابي أيضا، نعتمد كثيرا لربط هذه المجتمعات مع بعضها البعض على وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي المرتبطة ارتباطا رسميا بالذكاء الصناعي. على سبيل المثال أريد أن أطرح تجربة معينة لنا. هناك عدة نشاطات عائلية نقوم بإطلاقها، وبسبب عدم حضور الأمهات بسبب التزامهم بتربية الأطفال منذ سن الشهر حتى 5 أو 6، رأينا ضعف انخراط الأمهات هو يعود بسبب ارتباطهم في المنزل. فاعتمدنا على وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي، ومنها تطبيقات معينة، وهنا لا أروج لتطبيق معين، ولكن هناك تطبيق اسمه زيتلي، ومن خلاله تستطيع الأم بضغطة زر الاعتماد على التواصل مع أحد المربيين، الحضور وتولي مهام الوالدة أثناء حضورها في ذلك النشاط لدى تلك المنظمة المعينة. فأردت انطلاقا من هذه التجربة ومن تجربتنا الإيجابية مع الذكاء الصناعي ودمجه في مجال عملنا، أردت أن أشارك هذه التجربة. ومن كل الدكتورة داليا ما طرحته من سؤال أعتقد يجب على أحد الأشخاص التقنيين هنا، ربما لا أعلم من الحضور من البانيليست قد يستطيع الإجابة عليه، ولكني أردت أن أنطلق من تجربتنا الشخصية في هذا الأمر. شكرا.
Thank you, Mr. Aram. Actually, what you just mentioned reminds me of a very important point, the youth or the young age. And my question now will be directed to Mr. Hatem regarding the young age. Of course, nobody can deny that the most digitally connected people are young age or our youth, right? So can you, Mr. Hatem, tell us about some kind of practical initiatives in order to help our youth or to help our young people in order for them to be ambassadors of constructive dialogue in order to dissolve this kind of barriers between civilization? Just from your experience, and I know you have a very great experience in this, what are some of the practical initiatives for young people?
Thank you, Dr. Dalia, and thank you everybody for this opportunity to discuss with you today this important topic. I'm here because I represent the Baha'i international community, and the Baha'i international community it really represents communities that exists in 100,000 localities around the world. There isn't a country on earth that does not have a Baha'i community in it. And the Baha'is everywhere are trying to learn in a systematic way how to establish the principles of coexistence. A fundamental aspect of creating coexistence and social cohesion in any community is really this talent, skill, let's call it, of consultation. And this is something that is practiced at the family level from a very young age, where children learn to express their views and also share their perspective on issues relating to the family, whatever that issue might be for the day. So the importance of collective learning, or if we use the term collective intelligence, is a principle that we are trying to humbly learn about in all these societies, in all these communities around the world, because it manifests itself differently in different social, cultural, and economic settings. And we try to gather these learnings through the 189 national institutions in each of these countries, and we gather them together into inside documents that we share in such forums. So a key initiative to come back to young people and their role in promoting those principles of coexistence, and if I may add, to utilize this new technology, this new invention that have come about in the last 10, 15 years with social media and artificial intelligence, is really how can they be protagonists of conversations? How can they be protagonists of cross-border dialogue? How can they not be looked at as only consumers or consumers of content or producers of data or targets for influence, but rather active social protagonists in bringing about social cohesion? AI provides an incredible tool that makes language no longer a barrier. You see, now that we have the opportunity to translate very quickly our conversation to one another, we can communicate across the world. Only 70 years ago, humanity was able to see planet Earth with one single eye. Prior to this, throughout our history of existence, we were not able to realize that the world is but one country, and all of mankind are its citizens, that we are fundamentally a human family, members of the same family. Together we can advance civilization, together we can advance society, and now guess what? We have created the means to do it. So the instrumentality of artificial intelligence, social media, or whatever new technology that humanity will invent in the coming decades
Thank you, Mr.
are essentially tools to advance that purpose.
Thank you for this informative kind of remarks. It really opens a new discussion for the same point. And the same question is directed to Ms. Sheely about our young generation or youth. Do you have, from your own experience working in the HTC, any practical kind of initiatives that helps our youth or our young generation in order to ambassadors for constructive dialogue in order to dissolve the barriers between nationalities?
Thank you, Dr. Diana. And I would like to endorse what Dr. Hatim just mentioned about the youth learning from the AI and how they can materialize this. Like I could say a simple example, that the digital media, the responsible media, it very much begins at the family level. The responsible media happens at the home. Each house, each family is now becoming a kind of a small media classroom. And there, whatever content is being posted, let's say by a family member, then it should be checked first, because the children might think that speed matters more than the truth. So whenever we have a kind of a posting on the family groups or inside the house, then it should be first checked that whether it is true, whether it is kind, whether it is necessary, and will it bring the people closer together or it will push them apart. Now for the youth, I would specially say that we should have a kind of a digital empathy circles. It is just an idea that I'm trying to float, that we can make a small digital empathy circles of the youth who belong to different cultures, who belong to different faith. And when they come together, then each of them, they would share one stereotype that they bring into the action online, one tradition that they believe in and they follow in their families, and one service that they or their community provide to the society. And when this youth comes together, they can co-create a strong digital youth message which can create an impact on the society.
Exactly. What you are just saying aligns with most of our dearest and distinguished guest has just mentioned. And let's move from the family level into a wider level, which is the society or the authorities in charge of such kind of initiatives. And my question will be directed to you now. How can local communities counter online polarization and build trust across cultural differences?
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. طبعا أنا بس حبيت أتكلم عن الاختصاص اللي موجود في أكثر أساس أفيدكم في الطرح. حبيت أشارك في المحور الثاني اللي يتكلم عن القوة الناعمة. فبتكلم في البداية يسعدني أن أشارككم رؤيتي بالإجابة على السؤال الحواري الثاني المتعلق بدور القوة الناعمة والقيادة الأخلاقية في تعزيز التفاهم المتبادل والتماسك المجتمعي في عصرنا الرقمي. وأسلط الضوء اليوم على أداة استراتيجية أثبتت كفاءتها الميدانية وهي الدبلوماسية الرياضية الشاملة. أن القوة الناعمة الحقيقية لأي أمة لا تقاس فقط بمدى تسارع تقنياتها بل بالقيم الإنسانية والشمولية التي تصدرها للعالم. ومن واقع إشرافنا الميداني في قطاع الرياضة البارالمبية وهي رياضة أصحاب الهمم وإدارة البعثات في المحافل الدولية، نسلط الضوء أو لمسنا كيف تتحول المنافسات والملاعب إلى منصات دبلوماسية راقية للحوار الحضاري تتجاوز حدود اللغات والاختلافات لتصنع تعاطفا إنسانيا وتفاهما متبادلا عابرا للثقافات. وهنا يأتي الدور الجوهري لاستضافة البطولات الرياضية. فعندما حظينا بشرف تنظيم البطولات الرياضية في مدينة العين، سواء البطولات الرماية البارالمبية على مختلف السنوات، لم نكن ننظم حدثا رياضيا فحسب، بل كنا نجسد للعالم نموذج القيادة الأخلاقية لدولة الإمارات التي تؤمن بالدمج الشامل وتكافؤ الفرص. وفي هذا العصر الرقمي المتسارع تلعب هذه الاستضافات والبطولات دورا محوريا في صناعة السرديات الرقمية الملهمة والمحتوى الإعلامي المسؤول. أن قصص نجاح وإنجازات أبطالنا من أصحاب الهمم على منصات التتويج تتحول عبر الفضاء الرقمي إلى رسائل بصرية قوية تنتشر عالميا وتساهم بشكل فعال في كسر الصور النمطية وتعزيز التماسك المجتمعي والتعايش الإنساني المستدام.
Thank you very much for reminding again that United Arab Emirates is a kind of leader, not only on the region, but also maybe in the whole world, that it invests a lot in dissolving such kind of barriers between nationalities. More than 200 nationalities are living, not only living, they are working and thriving on the land in a mutual kind of respect, and this is a kind of role model for any other country who would like to lead in this kind of civilization and the mutual respect. Thank you very much. And my question now is directed to Mr. Al-Qadi about the question back. How could our communities, maybe on the social level or on the governmental level, to combat online polarization?
I would like that, Assalamu alaikum, first of all. I would like to emphasize that these instruments that we have really could improve our services to the community. For example, in our Sharia courts in Israel, we have a very clever system that it is cooperative with the people, that anyone can check his file in the court, and he could be interactive with the court in order to improve his case or to know what's going with his case, which is a very clever system. It is based on AI in some aspects. Therefore, I think the services that we give as authorities or even as a civil activities, it should something that we use the AI, we use the high technology to have a great impact of our community, but we should never trust these instruments. It is very clever, it's very good, but we need the man behind, the woman behind, who really should take this direction and take this technology to the right side, to the useful of the humanity, to the useful of the people, because sometimes these machines and this technology, even if it's very high technology, needs the man who is more clever and more effective than these technologies. And the man behind, he created this technology, and he will improve this technology, and he will lead this technology to more and more development. So we need the man, we should educate the man, we should be sure that the man behind or the woman behind is really educated, he knows how to act, he knows how to have this connection with the others, with the people, with the other communities, with the other authorities. Therefore, I always emphasize the man is the great thing that Allah created, and he is the ruler of this universe, and anything that we develop still less than the man or the woman.
Thank you very much for this remark, because I guess so many people would agree with you. Instead of blaming technology for the consequences or the bad consequences, let's start with the man behind inventing technology. So instead of just blaming the technology, the AI, the artificial intelligence, we should bear a lot of attention to how to qualify the man behind creating such technology on the maybe spiritual level, not only technically. So this is a very good point. Yeah, this is the problem, because If a man who is not psychologically stable and he is very smart or in technology or in such kind of artificial intelligence, he is a real danger, not what he created, right? So thank you for this remark very much. And let's move to you. When we are talking about combating online polarization, can you give me, from your experience, what kind of initiatives or strategy we could use in order to reduce the online polarization, especially for our youth?
Yes, thank you. Well, I'll go to the big strategy, which may or may not be feasible, but I think I want to give this idea. Relates to one of the questions you asked earlier about empathy for AI. I think the problem is that AI has too much empathy, and it's designed to appease the user, so to appease him, so he will keep using it. And the thing is that we have a growing crisis of loneliness and isolation, especially in the Western world. And I think that's one of the main reasons that drives what my colleague Jason described, polarization and hatred to the other group. Because what happens is that when people don't have communities, they have almost nothing. They have an isolated environment, especially in the West. I think that here in the UAE and the Middle East, we feel it a bit less, but in the West, it's very prevalent. So they look for something to belong to. And the next thing they can belong to is a big ideological group or the nation or something like that. And the problem is that because those groups are so big, they cannot define themselves positively. The only way to define who is part of my huge movement of tens of millions of people is to define who is not in the movement. So it's actually, we're in a cycle that people feel lonely, so they want to belong to groups that are too big, so they define themselves negatively. So they kick out other people and they marginalize them. So the best strategy to fight it actually is to build communities. And because if you have communities, people feel less lonely. Then they don't need to go to those huge groups and marginalize the other. And the best way to do it, with this I will end, is with us as faith leaders, because religions, all religions, Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, we all have a proven track record of how to build communities, how to bring people together. Just not yesterday from our friend the Qadi in the mosque, that in Juma prayer, you need to have 40 people in the mosque. Now this is a community building tool. You bring people, you bring the numbers and become a community. They become less lonely. And we have similar tools in Judaism and Hinduism. So my solution is community of real people, not of machines, of actual people talking to one another.
Thank you for your perspective and the insights. And let's move to a very close connected to how to decrease the online polarization. And the question is directed to you. Do you know, or based on your experience, can you give us a recipe how to build and encourage trust among civilization or different kind of cultures? How can we build more trust?
Sure. Well, thank you, Dr. Dahlia. I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you. And it's great to be here on the panel together. Look, we're living in an age of infotainment, and people are triggered by feelings, by emojis, by memes and whatnot. I run two societies, two academic societies that deal with scholarship, and the concern has been that propaganda and fake news has basically replaced scholarship. I think we have to be really, this goes back to Jason's point early on in his keynote about the formidable threats that we're facing. We're dealing with a concern that technology also has and the use of AI makes us also sometimes as a point of laziness. We have to actually go back to truth of the facts and to veritas and to actually find what facts are about. I mean, I think that the concern needs to be that we need to maintain, while at the same time responsible use of the technology, but also at the same time maintaining truth. Libraries are a dying business, and so nobody's reading my books, and nobody's going to libraries. But I think that we have an opportunity to take a technology and make sure at the same time we're finding the right information and we're disseminating the right information. Otherwise, there's a bigger concern for the younger generation, and the points that were raised earlier, that the generation will be illiterate and will not know about what reading the actual books and going down to a tweet or an emoji or whatnot. We need to make sure that the facts are indeed concerned. And as an historian, I think that we are at a risk where we're talking about civilizations at large, that people need to grasp the larger issue. You can't boil down a swatch of history to a 30-character tweet. there's a major concern about actually understanding and appreciating it while using the same time of technology to actually be able to explain history, facts, which are critical. And I think that, to my experience, we have an obligation to make sure that in the family and the institutions are relying on that in order to make sure that the next generation understands the patterns of history, how we got here, and to ensure the fact that actually facts do matter. And if we don't, there's a danger of losing the messaging. And I think that the threats that are triggering and the use of AI and looking at footprints as far as online footprints are also concerns as far as what drives hatred, discrimination, anti-Semitism that we're seeing worldwide. I too hail from the United States, and we're seeing a massive increase in the hatred that is driven by the online messaging without knowing facts. And part of the gap that we've been trying to work on is ensuring the fact that there's actually a perceived reality by the institutions and the actual reality on the ground. This sector of the world, which is critical, I mean, what's happening here in the UAE, why we're here today, is not always what trickles down into the environment of soft power, media, academia, and we have to ensure that stays, there's an ongoing flow of information to ensure the fact that facts matter.
Thank you very much for your insights, and maybe all of us agree and on the same page with you, because it's if we need to protect our youth, it's not an individual efforts, it's a collective participation between start maybe with the family, move to the society, community, and ends up to the government itself in order to maybe enforce a certain kind of policy or embed a kind of curriculums or awareness campaigns. So it's a collective work. Not only the efforts should be put on the family or the community or even the government. It's a collective work in order to protect our youth or younger generation from such kind of hazards. And you mentioned a very good point about digital responsibility. And we would like to hear from Dr. Noura about this kind of terminology, digital responsibility. Lisa, sorry.
So about digital responsibility, the responsibility we have to really, so I think, the first thing, as I said before, is for all of us to really understand it, to know it very well, to use it, to try it, and to understand its capabilities and to understand what it can't do. And I don't think people are really being responsible about doing that, about learning and being open to learning. I myself am, I remember when I was young, one of my first memories, one of the first thoughts I ever had, I was actually living in Cairo at the time. I was in first grade, and I was being taught how to read. And I thought, and I remember this thought, I even remember where I was, I'm very happy, and I don't know how to read. So I should not learn how to read. And I've remained someone who's very resistant to learning new things, and that's one of the reasons I know how valuable it is. In fact, I learned how to read. I've read hundreds of books. It's changed my life. And so I think that the first step is really knowledge and knowledge about AI.
Thank you, Dr. Lisa, very much for your insights. And let's move to you. Can you tell us about how to build trust among different kind of cultures, and of course, maybe we can talk about the UAE experience in this, because it's a leading country in building trust among different nationalities.
I believe the trust is built beyond, for the people, I've been in China last week. So my question is, why the Chinese people, they are so much with us like that? If I experienced that years ago, we have a collaboration with them, and we have so much agreement, and also some talk. And last year, my friends, they just hospitalized the Chinese students to come to our university. And they had a great time here in the UAE. And this year, we went there to them. So we had a lot of experience with them, and I really enjoyed my time there. So if I translate that, how to build the trust, I would say like to have some moments with each other. So remind each other for a specific thing. And also they can remind me after maybe 10 years. By the way, I'm 22 years old, so maybe I'm the youngest one here. After 10 years, they will remind me, okay, Mansour, you went to this farm and you just caught such a fruit. I'll say, oh, so like 10 years, and it's run fast. And this is how I can say about the trust. For the trust, it's not built overnight. It is built through consistent actions, meaningful dialogue, and genuine commitment to understand others. And UAE experience shows that when diversity is supported by mutual respect and a shared vision for the future, and trust can flourish across cultures and nations. Trust is the foundation upon which lasting cooperation and peaceful coexistence are built. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, you said a very insightful word, that trust doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen just like this. It needs a kind of decision, willingness, responsibility in order to happen. And what UAE has unprecedentedly succeeded in is building a trust for all these kind of nationalities working, living, as I mentioned before. And I would like Mr. Saif to elaborate on this same point, building a trust among different civilizations.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بداية نرحب بكم جميعا، وسعيد جدا أني أنا أشوفكم وأسمع الكلام الطيب منكم جميعا. فأنت تحدثنا عن الثقة، فاليوم مسألة الثقة مش مسألة بسيطة جدا، ودولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة دائما في مسألة الثقة اللهم لك الحمد رائدة. بنيت دولة الإمارات في وقت تأسيس دولة الإمارات، الله يرحم الشيخ زايد وكذلك الشيخ راشد بن سعيد. قبل ما يصير اتحاد دولة الإمارات فقط الشيخ راشد بن سعيد سلم على الشيخ زايد وقال له أنت الرئيس، بدون أوراق بدون أي شيء. فالثقة اليوم عندنا نحن هذه النهج، والثقة في العالم مهمة جدا. اليوم أمور قاعدة تصير في الدول اللي اليوم نحن قاعدين نعيش فيها، والأمور اللي تصير ممكن علاقات كثيرة تخترب مع دول كثيرة بسبب عدم الالتزام بالتعهدات اللي بينهم وبين الأمور اللي اليوم صايرة في مستوى العالم. فاليوم الثقة جدا مهمة أنها تكون موجودة بين الدول، بين الأفراد، بين المؤسسات، مش فقط بين الدول، هي تكون على مستوى شامل ومستوى كبير يعني في هذه المسألة.
Thank you, Mr. Saif, for your insights. And before we end our roundtable discussion, I would like each one of our distinguished guests to complete or in one sentence tell me about this question. What do you consider is the most important action that is needed to strengthen dialogue among civilizations in the digital era? In one sentence. And let's start by Mr. Aram.
شكرا. بهذا الأمر أعتقد أن نسمي الأشياء بمسمياتها هو شيء ضروري. أحيانا يتم القفز على وجود أشخاص معينين من فئات مجتمعية معينة، من أقليات معينة، بطرح أسماء أكبر. على سبيل المثال في بعض الدول في الشرق الأوسط لا يسمى بعض المكونات الدينية أو العرقية بمسمياتها كما هي، وإنما يتم تصنيفهم على أساس الدولة التي يأتون منها. لكي نعطي أهمية لتلك المكونات بوجودها، ولكي نؤمن بأنها جزء من هذه الحضارات، ولكي نتسامح فيما بيننا، يجب أن نسمي الأشياء بمسمياتها ونحترم ذلك الأمر انطلاقا من مبدأ التعددية والتنوع. شكرا.
Let's move to Mr. Saif. One, the most important action needed in order to foster dialogue among civilization. Okay, now each one of our guests is going to conclude with one action needed in order to enforce or strengthen. Okay, let's move to you.
لإجابة هذا السؤال أبى أستشهد على مقولة سيدي صاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد. قال الدول ما تقاس بالحجم، الدول تقاس بالإرادة. ونحن نستلهم من هالكلام. كيف بالإرادة؟ إنه مش بس القوة الاقتصادية، مش بالجي دي بي، مش بالأشياء الثانية. نبغى نشوف كيف تحقق يعني الثقة ما بين الدول. والحمد لله دولة الإمارات قادت هالشيء، وكل الدول يعني تستلهم منها. ومثل ما قال سيدي، دولة الإمارات مثل النور اللي تنور في أرض مظلمة.
Thank you. One action needed in order to strengthen dialogue among civilization. One action needed.
أنا بس بركز وبأيد الكلام اللي قالوه الأخوة اللي قبلي. التكافؤ وإعطاء الفرص والشمولية والدمج، هذه رسالتنا. خلينا نتكلم على مستوى الجهة الحكومية المنتسبين لها هيئة زايد لأصحاب الهمم. الدمج وإعطاء شمولية وتكافؤ الفرص لجميع أفراد المجتمع هو السبيل لتعزيز هذه الفكرة.
Thank you. Mr. Pranav.
Hello. So I'll just summarize exactly in one sentence. First thing is you should know your prayer. Be rooted in your family, your faith and your values. Second is greet your neighbors. Whoever is your neighbors from whichever nationality, greet them, let's say. Third is before you publish anything, verify. And fourth is before you criticize, invite them and have a face-to-face meeting. That's what I say.
Thank you.
السلام عليكم جميعا. ويا مرحبا بكم هنا في دولة الإمارات. حياكم الله جميعا. إجابتي على هذا السؤال، بما أننا نحن تكلمنا عن الذكاء الاصطناعي، فأنا أبغي أركز نوعا ما على التقنية. اليوم التقنية تحتاج من خلالها أن نعزز الحوار والتفاهم، مو بس نزيد الانقسام أو ننشر الكراهية. وأعتقد أن الإمارات قدمت نموذج جدا جميل في هذا المجال، لأن استخدمت التكنولوجيا كوسيلة للتقارب بين الشعوب، مو كبديل للإنسان.
Thank you. Miss عائشة.
أنا أريد أذكر مشهد لصاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد آل نهيان رئيس الدولة، يوم كان رايح المول وكان في حد من الأطفال عنده، فقال هو الشيخ قال حق الطفل تسمح لي أتصور معك. فهذا دليل على تواضع شيوخنا. هذا الموقف يخلي المجتمع والناس يعرفون كيف إنه ما في مسافة بين القائد والناس أو الفئة هذه. فنحن لازم ننشر التسامح والتواضع وهذه الأمور، والقادة القدوة هم أكبر شيء إيجابي ممكن نحن نستلهم منها.
Yeah, exactly. Awareness on all levels of community. Very good. One action needed in order to strengthen dialogue among different civilizations. One action needed. What is it?
As I said, community building rooted in joint learning, joint ideas, Abrahamic tradition. Ideas bring people together.
Thank you.
Look, language, culture, and politics and religion are the key ingredients for society. And I think that the main thing that, to my mind, is needed is context. Context and facts need to be verified, and we can't just rely on trigger words that lack any kind of context. Without those understandings, we're going to be in the slippery slope. So context is, to my mind, is critical, and responsible education all around.
Yeah, responsible education and watching the context. Yes, thank you. One action needed.
I think that the important action that we need is to prepare our community, everyone his community, in order to be ready to have this interfaith dialogue, this civilization together, living together. And because if we, from different religions, different countries, we meet each other and talk about how we can make a good life for everyone, but our communities in the home, they stay as they are, this is the problem.
Yeah, preparation of community. Okay, with all the policies needed, education, awareness, it's okay. One action needed.
نكون مقتنعين، يكون عند كل شخص قناعة بيآمن في اللي هو بيحاول يوصله للمجتمعات، بيحاول يبنيه مع الأجيال الجاية علشان نقدر نبني واقع حضاري تكنولوجي.
Thank you.
To truly see the blessing that the other person has, express it to them with your lips, and truly believe in your heart that my world is so much more beautiful because you are part of it.
I totally agree. It's the power of psychology. Yeah, keep telling yourself what are the good side of this person instead of just have a kind of presupposed kind of evaluation or judging. Thank you. Dr. Lisa?
So it's so wonderful to be back in Abu Dhabi. I spent a lot of time here when I worked with NYU Abu Dhabi. And I'm very reminded of the incredible hospitality in Abu Dhabi, and I see all the people who are not from here who are so happy to be around it. And I feel like one thing is to express curiosity and welcoming. And the UAE is so good at that. So I want to remember that, and I think that's one way to help conversation is to be hospitable.
Thank you. Shelly?
Yes. What I believe is the civilizations, they do not dialogue by the declaration. Civilizations dialogue by listening, by hospitality, and by the service. So in the BAPS tradition, we believe that in the joy of others lies our own. If we make this a digital ethic, a AI ethic, a civilization ethic, then our life will become much more beautiful. And we can start this practical action at a family level. What we can do is every day, 20 minutes, device-free family conversations should flow, where the children and the family members, they feel free, they feel, they pause, they verify, they listen to each other, and they get a safe space to question anything there. And that builds a stronger family. And from stronger family, the kinder communities are built. And from kinder communities, the technology usage becomes much more safer. So this is one message that I would like to give. 20 minutes of device-free family conversations amongst all the family members every single day.
Though nowadays it's a real challenge to go device-free for 20 minutes, but it's okay. We will try. Okay?
I love that. Just picking up on what Dr. Lisa was saying, actually. In this country where tolerance, where mutual respect is so empowering and so much a symbol of this country, AJC 5 years ago founded the AJC Abu Dhabi Sydney Lerner Center for Arab Jewish Understanding. Other institutions should create within their own frameworks that kind of special program devoted to outreach to the other with curiosity, with humility, understanding that we are so much stronger when we get to know the other, but when we get to know our neighbors, when we build programs together.
Absolutely, right.
So I would say recognition of the oneness of humanity. And on that as a basis, creating spaces, as has been mentioned before, at all levels, the level of family, the level of interfaith dialogue, the level of institutional or interinstitutional interactions, and cross-country interactions, create spaces where the principles of coexistence and unity are explored, their applications are discussed, and their implications as far as the benefit of society and indeed to all of humanity are realized.
Thank you, Mr. Hatem, very much. And at the end, we are concluding now our session. I would like to extend my sincere thanks on behalf of Emirates Scholar Center for Research and Studies for our distinguished guests and for our attendees and also for the organizing team. Thank you very much for your time and for your insights.